Day 4.
Don't forget those 3 tips I gave you yesterday. Those are really going to help you get these fine lines and details in this last day of painting on your canvas. So tip number 1 was to dip your brush often. Have plenty of paint on your brush every time you go to the canvas. Tip number 2 was to lightly touch the surface of the canvas with your brush. Don't ever smash the brush onto the canvas. Tip number 3, hold your brush perpendicular to the canvas or straight up and down. Don't lean it to the side because that's going to give you a thicker line, and you want a nice thin line for the details on this final day.
Okay guys, day 4. This is the final day, and this is the day when everything kind of comes together and turns out looking fantastic. So I'm going to use my next to the smallest brush. This is my number 6 shader, or my number 6 flat. And I'm going to start off with a little bit of yellow again. Whoops, I got a little bit of orange mixed in there. So I'm going to start with a little bit of yellow, and I'm going to paint this part of the eye right here with yellow. This is kind of like what would be the white part of the eye, or the iris of the eye. So we're going to paint this with a little bit of yellow, and I've got a little bit of orange mixed in with mine, which is fine too. And I'm going to pick up a little bit more orange and put here and here, so that the lightest part is right here. And if you get that too dark, we can always highlight that a little bit later. So I'm actually gonna rinse my brush out because I want plain yellow again. So I'm gonna get plain yellow, and I'm going to paint this eye also with that plain yellow. And then I can also put a little bit more of that plain yellow in this section of the eye. Okay, and then I'm going to put that brush back in my water, and I'm going to pick up my smallest brush. This is a number 2 round, and I'm going to use black. And anytime I'm using black, I want to make sure I have a good glob of black on my brush so that I get nice smooth lines. And with the black, I'm going to paint the pupil black. I'm going to fill in this space above the eye here, all with black, so it doesn't look like an eyelid anymore. And then remember, we have this little curve right here at the bottom. I don't know if you guys can still see your curve or not, but if not, there's like a little curve down here. And then I'm also going to trace this bottom curve of the eye. And it will kind of blend in with this part, and that's okay. We want it to sort of blend in with our shading that we did. Now I'm going to go over to the other eye and paint the pupil, of course, first. Then I'm going to trace this part of the eye, the upper lid. These are a little bit thinner. These lines over here are pretty thick, and the lines on this eye are going to be a little bit thinner. So you don't quite see as much of the eye. So the way you get nice thin lines, remember, is to have plenty of paint on your brush and then barely touch the surface of the canvas with your brush to get those nice thin lines. And now I'm going to give my leopard a little bit more dimension and shading with the black. And I'm going to outline a few of these areas. So here, where we had the nose originally, I'm going to go over this line. And again, it blends in with our shading, and that's okay. And there's a little bit of a line here. Then this part, I'm just going to sort of make a little blob there at the mouth. Trace this line. Trace this line. And then I'm going to trace sort of the inside of my shading where the ear was. Maybe give this ear a little bit of shading along the inside too. Now I'm going to take my brush and add some black splotches, since this is a leopard. So I'm just going to take the black, and I'm using my small brush, but if you want to switch over to a larger brush, you can, if that gets a little bit more paint on there for you. I'm also going to give him a few little, almost like freckles right here on the nose. Just a few, don't go crazy with those freckles there. And there was a little bit of a line right here, I don't know if you guys remember, but there's a little bit of a line. Add that little bit of a line there with black. Not much of one. And anywhere you feel like it needs to be outlined, I mean, you could outline this part if you want to. I'm probably not going to trace all of my outlines, but if you feel like some of your outlines got a little bit lost, you can trace those in black a little bit to kind of make it stand out a little more. Sometimes our outlines get a little bit lost with all the paint colors. So I'm gonna add some more splotches because it is a leopard. But again, you don't want to go crazy with the splotches of black. And I'm just taking my brush and kind of blobbing the paint on there to add those black splotches. And this really makes it look like a leopard. So I'm back in here. And try to make them irregular. Don't make it look like he's polka dotted. You want some of the splotches to be close together, and you want some splotches to be smaller and some to be larger, some almost overlapping, some spaced out. You don't want it to be like a regular pattern. And I think that's probably enough splotches for now. And then the very last step, I'm gonna rinse my brush out one more time. And I'm gonna switch back to my angled shader because I want a nice big brush for this. So I'm back to my second to the largest brush, my angled shader. And I'm gonna pick up white and I'm gonna add highlighting with white. And if yours is not quite dry, you might wanna wait on this step because you want yours to be pretty dry as you do these highlights. And I'm just picking up blobs of white and I'm putting it on the canvas, and I'm not really moving it around because mine is still pretty wet. So I'm just blobbing some white along the nose, maybe a little spot under that eye, right here above the eye on this side, along the edge of the ear on this side because our light is hitting it on this side, on the edge of the nose, and the edge of the chin down here. And that can kind of cover your pencil line too. And then down here, I actually want to draw, or not draw, but I want to make some brush strokes so that it looks like fur. And every time I'm dipping my brush, I'm also going to put some highlighting right here in front of this ear. A little bit inside the ear there. And some along the back because the light is going to, oops, I got a blob of white. The light's also going to reflect off of the back of our leopard. So I'm putting these blobs of white along the back. Maybe some highlighting in here on that cheek. Maybe a splotch or two down there. And I think that's good for my white. And then I'm switching back to my small brush one more time for the last couple of steps. So this is my tiny brush, again, my number 2 round. And I'm gonna take white again. And this time I'm gonna, again, take a big blob of white, and inside of my pupil, I'm gonna put a dot on that pupil and on this one. And you don't have to get it centered. I like to kind of do my highlight halfway between the pupil and the iris. And if your pupil is really big, you could even do 2. If you want them to be extra sharp, sparkly. And then we need to do some whiskers. So the whiskers on this side are going to come from the face, and again I'm using my tiniest brush, and I'm going to pull those away from his face. Try to make these very subtle, which is sometimes kind of tricky. So you barely touch the surface of the canvas, have plenty of paint on your brush, and if you kind of pick up some other colors along as you go, that's okay. Or you can wait until this dries. So we're almost finished with our leopard. This got a little bit gray right here. So when this dries, I'm gonna go back and touch this up with white. And I also noticed I didn't quite fill in the eye completely up here. So I'm actually gonna go back with my black and fill in this section right here. There should not be any white space showing inside the eyes other than the highlight. So I'm gonna fill in that little space right there. And that should be your finished painting. And that's a wrap for Arts Camp 2020. We had a great time creating this week. I hope you guys did too. See you next year.